Joining me in the studio are Melissa Abu-Gazaleh and Will Homer from the Blokes Foundation, an organisation that focuses on young men's mental health. Melissa and Will, thank you very much for joining us. This research that has come out is showing that Australian teenagers are viewing porn and are doing so at a much younger age. Are these the sorts of trends that you're seeing with the work that you do?
Absolutely. So we have an amazing team of youth workers who work with a lot of young men around a lot of number of issues, and we find that young men's use of pornography has become a bigger issue over time. So what we do know is that young men aged 12 to 17-year-olds are the largest and fastest growing consumers of pornography. And I know this research talks about boys as young as 13 years old, but we've also heard stories of boys as young as 11 and 9 years old, viewing pornography. And that can be either both accidental or on purpose in terms of when they're coming across it as well. So, what we need to be doing with young men particularly is to be having conversations around, well, what sort of harms does it actually have? Because unfortunately, I think we often find that parents and teachers don't know how to have these sort of conversations.
Well, with this research, researchers have identified a clear link between pornographic use and mental health problems, and also kids becoming more sexually active at a younger age. Is this just some of the problems associated with viewing pornography at such young ages?
Absolutely. I'm not sure if Will wants to jump in here, but we often talk to young men about how using a lot of pornography can actually impact their mental health.
Yeah, definitely. I think the expectations that come with some of the content in pornography, especially the extreme nature of some of pornography, gives the wrong message of what realistic sexual experiences are going to be. And when you're talking about age brackets around 13 being the medium, we're also addressing kids that as young as 11. We've had kids in programs say that their first time that they were exposed to any kind of pornographic content was when they were 7. So when you're talking about the difference between 11 and maybe someone having a sexual experience when they're 18, that's a lot of time watching something that is not a portrayal of what actual sexual experiences are.
You're at the coalface, if you like. You are in schools teaching them about how to educate kids about pornography. That might sound alarming to many parents. They perhaps don't want their kids to know it exists. How do you broach that?
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing. It's a very difficult conversation to have, and often I don't think they're gaining this kind of information from the correct places. I know that maybe it's a older brother or a cousin or a friend that's a bit older that's giving them the information of what actually porn is, but they're just running through the same cycle and getting that misinformation of what sex is from porn. And I think that it does become quite a taboo topic to kind of speak about, and I think maybe you don't want to talk to your mum about porn, or if your dad even tried to talk to you about it, it's, oh, that's revolting, I don't want to talk about that. But the realistic sense is that it's there, they are watching it, and if they are watching it, maybe we need to educate them around it's an act, it's not the realistic sense, it's not like they're filming it, it's the extreme nature of it, really.
Yeah.
So, Melissa, how do you sell it to parents and to schools in that talking about pornography will have positive outcomes on the mental health of our young children?
So the fact is, we know that young men are watching pornography and that there are sort of links to what their behaviours might be. When we educate young men around their behaviours, that's the best chance that we have of having them to reflect on their behaviours and possibly changing that. So when we work with young men, we look around 3 things. How does pornography affect their relationships, their personal relationships? How does it affect their mental health? And how does it affect their physical health? And the one thing, and I think it's often a misconception, is that these boys often say to us, they're like, no one has actually ever told us this information before. No one sat down with us and actually had a conversation. So what we do see is that these young men do crave this sort of information so that they can make better choices. And we have had, as a result of our conversations and our workshops with young men around porn, boys will actually stop and reflect on how much porn they're consuming and how they can use particular online tools that are going to help them to reduce and gain control of the amount of porn that they are watching.
You're currently in the schools teaching to certain cohorts. Can you tell me the ages and what the demand is like out there?
Absolutely. So our programs we deliver to young men who are aged 15 to 24 years old. But what we do find is that teachers are actually coming to us and saying, can you please work with our Year 7 and our Year 8 boys? And we've also had primary school teachers come to us as well, because they're seeing a lot of these behaviours play out in the playground. So, they often feel that because of young men's online porn use, that, it might filter into additional sexting and sort of other sort of behaviours as well.
Is this something that this report report that came out from the Burnett Institute with these statistics. Is this something that you would hope the government would look at and react on in a national way?
It absolutely needs to happen. I mean, the thing is we're just not being able to keep up with with the fast-paced nature of technology and the trends that we often see in young people. So, it's definitely something that the government needs to be acting upon. There are groups out there already trying to do something about it, but the more support we can get, obviously, the more young men and young women we can reach.
Okay, really interesting and controversial topic. Melissa and Will, many thanks for your time.
Thanks for that.